Hello, my PMP warriors. I know lots of you are getting ready for this PMP exam, and today I'm going to show you a strategy for how to answer these questions. Now, most of the questions you find on the PMP exam, upwards of 90%, are going to be situational, and they're going to be written in this format that I term SPQ, situation, problem, question. So you get a situation described, some sort of scenario. You're the project manager in this situation. Then a problem is introduced. And after the problem, you're given a question. And the question is usually, what should you do next? So here's an example. You're a project manager on a large predictive project. Two team members are in conflict over a requirement. What should you do next? You can see it maps directly back to a situation. You're a project manager on a large predictive project. A problem. Two team members are in conflict over a requirement. And then the question. What should you do next? And then you're given a series of options, and it's all about you being able to fine-tune and choose the best option following principles of project management, great mindset, servant leadership, and so on. Here's a question. This is a very simple one. This is, you're working with a business unit to complete a benefits management plan. That's just a situation. Which of the following would you expect to be done as part of the responsibilities of the benefits owner? So that rolled straight into a problem and a question. Which of the following would you expect to be done? That's the problem you got to solve, right? As part of the responsibilities of the benefits owner, and then select all that apply. So if you know this enough, from page 33 in the PMBOK guide, right? PMBOK guide 6th edition. This is where you have to apply some knowledge. And to be quite honest, if you've read your page 33, this is where you can identify in a lineup A, B, and D only, not C. This is where it could become a little bit hard for some people, because not only do you need to have the principles in mind, you also need to have hardcore knowledge. And if you don't have hardcore knowledge, you could end up selecting C, and that will not be a right answer. So it's not always a rigid SPQ. It could be built in with additional distractors, problems such as the options in and of themselves. The question isn't so much a problem here, but the options, if you don't know them well, it could be a problem. Here's another one, and I've given you the answer. Project manager completes a major deliverable as part of directing and managing an IT deployment project. The project manager confirms with the quality assurance team that all systems are working and functionality has been verified. So watch this. Where is the problem? See, it's telling you the scenario, and now the problem is actually what should you do next? Because a problem is not separate from the what should you do next. It says, you've done your deliverable, right? That's not a problem, that's situation. Project manager confirms with quality assurance team that all systems are working and functionality has been verified. It's not a problem, it's still situation. Now rolled up into that, what should the project manager do next is a problem based on the scenario described. So you got your situation, then you got your problem and question as a double whammy. Well, the answer here is D. It's arranged for customer inspection or demo, right? And if you go through the options, update the risk register, why? Close out the project or phase, why would you do that, right? Because it says a deliverable, major deliverable, as part of directing and managing an IT deployment project, you completed a major deliverable. So it would make sense for there to be some sort of inspection or demo, not to close out the project, not to go update OPAs, because there's still more that you can discover, and that all happening before the project is closed. So the best answer here is D. Okay, so that's another example of how a question could be stated. Let's take a look at another question. You have completed your review of the deliverable being created for your customer. The deliverable output does not reflect verification or acceptance by your quality team. What should the project manager do next? So the scenario, again, you've completed your deliverable, your review of the deliverable being created by your customer. Now this is the problem. The deliverable output does not reflect verification or acceptance by your quality team. You see that theme going on there? You see that? Let's get that pen and let's highlight this, because this is where this approach could help you. So this right here completed your review. This stuff right here is your situation. And then it goes into the problem. You see, the deliverable output does not reflect verification. And this is where, again, you as a test taker, you got to be very quick in reading this stuff, and you got to immediately know where you are on that grid. So it's pretty much saying you don't control quality and it ain't great. So what should you do next? Should you do A, control the project scope and prevent scope creep? Well, you're beyond that. You're done with the deliverable. B, proceed to validate the project scope and obtain approval. Well, that'll be foolish, isn't it? C, perform quality assurance and review any generated change requests. Think about what you're doing, right? And then D, carry out regression analysis. Well, we do that when we're closing out the project or phase. So the best option here is C. You got to understand what is going on. See that? And this part of review any generated change requests, again, that's a distractor. But that could happen as part of quality assurance. And it is the best answer. Okay? All right. With that said, let's move on. Another example of how questions could be written. You're a project manager on a large Agile project. 2 team members are in conflict over acceptance criteria for a story. What should you do next? You know as a good project manager what you should do, right? You got to facilitate conflict resolution. Don't solve the conflict. Facilitate it. You want to choose an answer that espouses the Agile mindset, the servant leader mindset, courage, and all of those other Scrum values. Moving on to the next thing here. Your Scrum team is currently experiencing a lot of technical debt and degraded code quality. What should the project manager do next? Now, again, Scrum team is currently experiencing a lot of technical debt and degraded code quality. So did you notice where that shift happened? There's a shift where you're going from just a situation to smack dab in the middle of a problem. Did you catch that? So your Scrum team is currently experiencing a lot of technical debt and degraded code quality. All at once, you're getting a situation and you're getting a problem. And then you're getting the question, what should the project manager do next? So with this, you got to understand what should a PM do in this scenario. Now, there's something else that has been thrown in here, quite subtle, and I want to point this out. And I'm going to use my pointer. Let's use a blue ink color. So this right here, if you are not quick to catch it now. This is actually a distractor. Why? Because it says a Scrum team. And then it throws in project manager. Well, those of you who've done your homework, you know that a project manager should probably not be on the horizon in a Scrum team. So it's kind of oxymoronical, and that is deliberate, and that is a distractor. And I dare say you are going to get distractors on your PMP exam where the project manager is mentioned. So you got to get used to seeing the project manager. It's inconsequential. The bottom line is the problem is this stuff. This is what you need to be worrying about. Technical debt and degraded code quality, not the presence of a project manager in Agile or Scrum, because that is a distractor. And that takes us to the next model that I want to point out. This model, I call it the SPQD. Now we're going to come back to this slide, but I want to introduce it. It's the concept of having a distractor. Now you don't know that the distraction has been baked into the question, but it's there. It's niggling, it's bothering your mind, and you're like, a project manager in Scrum? trust me, it's a distractor. And if you keep worrying about it, it's just going to siphon your time and send you down a rabbit trail. You don't want that to happen. So, your buddy Phil is making you aware of it. You're going to get distractions, but don't go down the rabbit trail. Instead, focus on what you should do to take care of the technical debt and degraded code quality. So A, the product owner should provide a better roadmap. B, velocity should be considered when the Scrum Master creates the sprint goal. Well, it's not the Scrum Master who does that, so you're going to eliminate that right off the bat. Okay, we're being nice to A, we're not totally sure, we keep it in a parking lot, but when you really boil down the product roadmap, you know that it's not just the product owner working on that, but think about it. Technical debt, what exactly is it? Technical debt is not as a result of, oh, we don't know what to do. Not really. Could lead to that, but it's not that. Technical debt means you cut corners. There's stuff that you should have buttoned down well, you didn't. And then degraded code quality is a pretty clear term. You got degradation in the quality of the work you're doing. So could we lump all of that on a product roadmap? We'll keep that at parking lot. But let's take a look at C. Refactoring, agile modeling, and automated code quality analysis. What is refactoring? It's tidying up your code, going over the code and getting it smoother and better. Agile modeling is a number of things, all good. Automated code quality is one of the things that we espouse in Agile, where appropriate. And it talks about code quality here, after all. So there's nothing wrong in automated code quality analysis. If I was going to choose between A and C, I'd get rid of A. Because it says, what should the project manager do next? A is not what to do next. It's kind of like a griping session. Well, this is what should have happened. Did you catch that? So again, another way you can be distracted on questions is a statement that you may think, oh, it's true. Yeah, the product owner should probably do that. But it didn't ask about what should the product owner have done. No, this is what should the project manager do next. So A is not even answering the question, so we're going to get rid of it. And then we have D, conduct retrospectives with all stakeholders to better decide on requirements. Well, retrospectives are not for deciding on requirements, and they're not done with all stakeholders either. So you can get rid of that, and the best answer is C. This is how you need to think through this stuff. Did you see how A seemed a little bit viable at first until you tune your mind into, no, the question is, what should the project manager do next? Not what is the problem? Not what should the product owner have done? You get what I'm saying? All right, good. All right, let's move on here, my friend. So we're now in this zone of the SPQD, if you will, where we have a distractor. So I want you to keep that in mind. But let's take a look at this next one. All right. So a project manager is aware of two critical high-impact risks that must be addressed immediately. Now, this statement right here contains both your scenario and something. You're not sure right now if that is a problem or if that is just talk. Now, I do apologize. I'm seeing a little bit of overlap here, so let's make that smaller so you can actually see the question better if it's obscured. So it says, however, the necessary resource to address the risks are already committed to another project with critical deliverables. So, aha, now you can see what the problem is. So, let's go ahead and line that problem, highlight that problem, make that green, right there. However, the necessary resources to address the risks are already committed to another project with critical deliverables. So that's a problem. And then goes back to the question, what should the project manager do? So you got the situation, then you've got the problem, then you got the question. Okay. So let's see, could there be a distractor buried in here? Two critical high impact risks that must be addressed immediately. However, the resources are already committed to another project with critical deliverables. Let's take it at face value. So A, review the resources availability with the functional manager, renegotiate scheduling or task crashing. Let's add in more resources to the project. Let's put that in our back pocket and move on to the next one. B, hire external resources to handle these tasks in accordance with your procurement management protocol. It sounds big and lofty, but I'm not buying this because it says in accordance with your procurement management protocol. Nothing suggests that there should be such a protocol. So I'm going to call bogus on this one and just go with the cancellation. You know, because imagine you're in this company, right? And you need these resources, they're critical, right? You have critical deliverables you're doing, and these resources are the same ones that should be working on these high critical, high impact risks. So you want to get just people off the street and you think they can roll into that, then it's a bit of a far-fetched story. No, you just keep B, cancelled for now. C, establish a contingency reserve to solve the potential schedule delay and mitigate the possible impact. So this is all over the place. This is saying accept the risk, because if you put a contingency reserve aside, you're invariably saying we accept the risk. And then it says to solve the potential delay and mitigate the possible impact. Contingency reserves do not mitigate, they accept. So that's bogus, we're going to cancel that. D says assume the risks and control them often. So this is saying, accept the risk, and then it's saying do something about the risk. So this is two-faced. So the best answer to this, my friends, is A. It's review the resources availability with the functional manager and renegotiate rescheduling or task crashing. That's your best bet right now. B, again, is bogus. It's pie in the sky. It doesn't make sense based on what we're facing here. You know, and procurement management protocol is so bogus. You can smell it a mile away. So A is the best one. Again, do you see this format? There's a situation, there's a problem, there's a question, and there's distraction. And part of the distraction in here was that procurement management protocol. There's other distractions. If you really know the content well, saying contingency reserve and mitigate in the same sentence is a distraction. Waste time. You know, assume the risk and control them. Again, it's something else that's wasting your time. So just be aware of how these questions could come at you. All right. Here's another one, a situation, a problem. The distraction could be anywhere. It could be baked into the statements that come early, or it could be put in between some of the statements, like the problem and the question, or it could be all rolled in one. And that's really what I'm trying to show you. Here's an example, very simple. You're project manager on a large Agile project. An issue has been discovered by the project sponsor. What should you do next? Did you catch the distractors in this one? There's a couple of distractors. One, we're in the world of Agile and we're using the word issue. Okay, now you know that really could be impediment. And then, as if that wasn't enough of a distraction, we've thrown in the word project sponsor. Double whammy, because you're on an Agile project and that is not something you'd expect to see. Trust me, on your exam, my friends, you are going to have distractions. You're going to have words, language pop up that you wouldn't have expected to see on Agile or Predictive, but you just got to roll with it. So the bottom line is there's an issue, there's an impediment. What should you do next? Okay, record it, get things taken care of. You get the idea. All right, so whether the distractor is buried in the question or buried in the answer, you're going to know what to do with it. Here's another example of a distractor. You're a project manager on a large predictive project with several iterations. A stakeholder is unhappy with one of the interim deliverables. What should you do to prevent this from escalating? So many distractors here. You got the distractor telling you it's predictive, but then it mentions iterations. Okay, that's already a distractor. For those of you who've read between the lines, right? That right here, that's a distractor. And then saying several iterations in predictive is a distractor. But you just got to ignore it, and you got to look at what the problem is. It says a stakeholder is unhappy with one of the interim deliverables. And then, what should you do to prevent this from escalating? That's the big question. How do I prevent this from escalating? The word prevent is kind of big. So you got to do everything you can. It's one of those, you know, we have the MKMK. So it's one of those manage close. If you take a look at wherever the stakeholder is, high level of power, high level of interest, in my mind, it's one of those. So even though it just says a stakeholder, the stakes are high, and you got to make sure that you do a great job in preventing escalation. All right. Okay, my friends. Let's take a look at a few more before I go on. For those of you looking for a solid mock exam that will really push you to the limit, you want to go on down to mock.hpmexam.com. Take a look at our 180 question final mock exam. It covers all areas, people, process, business. It'll give you a great run for your money. All right, let's go on down to our next one. Next one. Your firm has just been through a difficult year due to COVID-19. This is one of the ones I call story. Big old story. You know, you could actually call it an epic question because it's big. You could get a few of these on your exam. I know it looks very long, looks, you know, just too long to even make sense, but trust me, you could get these on the test. So let me just take myself out of there so you can see the question. Spend some time reading through it. So at what point do you see the problem? So the problem begins to emerge around line 2. That's part of the problem. And then it says, going to line 5, the project manager implemented a change to manage a significant risk, but a long while after implementation of the approved change, the project manager realizes that the change failed to achieve the expected result. This is really part of the crux of the matter. But earlier on, it describes a red herring kind of a situation. See that? It says, many projects have been cancelled. So that's a distractor right there. That has nothing to do with what the real problem is, right? A long while after implementation of the approved change, the project manager realizes that the change failed to achieve the expected result. See? So the real question starts here. Everything else was a waste of time, which is why I recommend speed reading, getting really good at looking at a question and going through it fast, because these can waste your time. But anyway, it says, this led to adverse consequences. As usual, the question is, what should the project manager have done in the past? So you got A, verified that the risk response was effective. B, added the risk information to the risk register and assumption logs. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't add the risk information to the assumption log. C, reviewed the assumption log to revisit or change existing assumptions. It says, what could the project manager have done to avoid this? It's a change in question. So C doesn't hold much weight. And D, assessed new risks and updated the probability impact matrix. You don't update the probability impact matrix. So again, bogus. You got to keep your eye on what the problem is. If the risk response was verified, that is the best option. Everything else is bogus or irrelevant. All right. So the best answer again, A. I know some of you have seen this on the channel already because we've reviewed this in the past. All right, let's move on. Let's go to our next question. And this reads, a large project was authorized. Let's take this out of the way. A large project was authorized in a well-known company. The project manager with several years of experience and a PMP was hired. So that's just story. Bit of a distraction. Two key stakeholders have different opinions about a project's goals. What should the project manager do to obtain approval of the charter? Negotiate an agreement between two stakeholders after reviewing the situation in more detail. Perform a stakeholder analysis using a stakeholder engagement assessment matrix to determine prevailing power. So, sure, the way I read it, you realize this is bogus. So it's not B. Settle the project goals during the kickoff meeting. In that way, the entire team can contribute. Let's leave that. D. Defer to the team charter during planning meetings and offer mentoring to both stakeholders. Okay, so which one do you think is the answer? If you read this carefully, you realize that these are stakeholders and this is happening early on. And what is their argument about? Well, it didn't even say argument, it said different opinions. So you see how the word different opinions can give you an idea that, oh, it's conflict. Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be conflict. So deferring to the team charter is presumptuous. They're not team members. And at this point, early on, there could very well be no team charter. This is really talking about project goals. This is early. And then C that says during the kickoff meeting. Well, no. It said a large project. PMP Guide tells you that on large projects, kickoff meetings don't happen in initiating. When do they happen? They happen in executing after planning is done. So waiting all the way to end the planning and forging ahead when you got wonky decisions about project goals is not advisable. See, so the best option in this case, negotiate an agreement between the two stakeholders after reviewing the situation in more detail. A is the best one. Everything else, not very good. And that is the mindset. Mind you, my friends, this is not about, hey, here's some questions to do. No, that's not my goal in this. My goal in this is really getting you to dial into the SPDQ or SPQD and just knowing how these questions could be structured, fine-tuning your focus, going in there knowing what to expect. You could get something that is this long, or you could get something that is, this long. Something that is this long. And that's really what I wanted to call your attention to. I hope this helps you. Don't forget to ask any questions you might have. Put them in the comments below. And hit like, subscribe, share with your friends. Let them know about this channel. Thank you very much, my friends. I wish you all the very best. You take care and bye for now.